We mentioned before that Descartes' followers were divided into two groups after his death. One group is called Rationalist, and the other group is called Empiricist. And both groups took a lot of stuff from Descartes, but mainly his subjectivism that you start with. You start with self or some form of I think, and from there you build your knowledge. And one of the key differences or the key dividing point between rationalists and empiricists was Descartes' idea of or Descartes' notion of innate ideas. And as we saw last time, Descartes meant a few different things by innate ideas. He meant actual ideas we may find in ourselves, like the idea of God. And he also seemed to have meant by that innate ideas the power of the potential powers of mind in general. But finally, he also seemed to believe that the mind has a power to intuit, that is, to see. So, mind has an eye through which it can see the fundamental truths. Obviously, that eye is rational eye, which is different from our material eye, because through our material eye we only perceive something which is material. But with the eye of mind you can see intelligible truths. So based on these three sources of power, you build your knowledge, or the foundations of knowledge, and then those foundations interact with, after we have established the body and the external world through senses, they interact with the external world and the experience. But for Descartes, the knowledge through mind was always superior to the knowledge through senses. In that this knowledge was more clear and distinct, that means true. On the other hand, sense knowledge is more fuzzy, and so more liable to error and all that. So error on the whole only comes through senses. That's why you don't include anything which you draw through senses in your foundational knowledge. That was Descartes' own original picture, as we saw last time. And second and related thing we find in Descartes is the concept of substance. So substance basically, if for Descartes, is anything which is self-sufficient. Which doesn't rely on anything other than itself for its existence. And although Descartes talks about three types of substances, so God is a substance, which most obviously is a substance. Yeah. And this is an idea of my mind in the sense that it's the idea which is innate to my mind. But Descartes decided that it can't be created by my mind for the reason which we already discussed. So obviously God doesn't depend on anything for his existence. That's why in fact Descartes' definition of substance actually fully apply only to God, as we will see. But there are two other substances for him to what's the other substance? Let's say matter and mind. There was essence of matter is extension, and the essence of mind is thinking. Now, they are substance only in derivative sense, because really matter and mind both depend on God for their existence, according to Descartes. They can't exist on their own. But they have, relatively speaking, independent existence, in the sense that as compared to qualities, for example. So, for example, color is not a substance because color cannot exist on its own. There has to be a substance of which. So chair maybe is a substance because it exists on its own. But there are a lot of qualities of that chair which are not substance because they depend on chair. Similarly, my mind is a substance in the sense that it has a semi-permanent status, but it has a lot of qualities which are more fleeting, like my memories, my thinking. They come and go, but there is something underneath which apparently is permanent, and without that we can't think of all those qualities which we relate to a mind or self. Similarly, we can't think of all the fleeting qualities which we relate to a matter or a substantiation of a matter like chair or table, unless we assume that there's something permanent which is holding them. So that thing is called substance. So for Descartes, there are three substances: God, that's the real substance, and then there are matter, and then there is mind. They are substance, and these substances have qualities which depend on them for their existence or their sustenance or their substantiation, but they don't depend on those qualities in that sense. But only God is a real substance, really, and matter and mind, according to Descartes' definition, are only derivative substances, because they depend on God according to Descartes, for their sustenance or their permanent or continuation or their continuous existence. And that's why Spinoza, who was one of the earliest Cartesian, is one of the most consistent followers of Descartes in this aspect, because he said there's only one substance. Because if we look at Descartes' definition of substance, then substance is anything which depends on its own for its existence. It doesn't depend on anything else for its existence. It's self-sufficient. And Spinoza said in that definition only applies to God. So matter and mind are really just the attributes of God in a sense. So that's why he's a sort of monist. He believes that there is only one substance, and so there's a God and its attributes, and there's nothing else there in the universe. So that was Descartes, which I just sort of rehashed what we had almost all of it we did before in the previous two videos. So the point of split between the rationalist followers of Descartes and empiricist followers of Descartes was this. That was about innate ideas. And especially in sense number one, you have ideas like God in you. Powers, and the third one was power to intuit. So mind's power to actually perceive content, not just to organize the. And rationalists like Leibniz, for example, held fast to the idea that there are innate ideas like this. On the other hand, empiricist, and one of the main person in there is Englishman John Locke. He basically denied the existence of innate idea, especially in sense 1 and sense 3. It's not very clear whether he would deny it in the second sense as well, and it's just not important for our discussion here. And John Locke is an empiricist. He is the founder of empiricism in that sense, modern empiricism, Cartesian empiricism, in that he denies that there are any innate ideas. And he also denies that the mind has any capacity to intuit, that is, provide us content. On the other hand, for him, all content comes from senses, and mind only organizes those senses, and mind does other things too, like inferences from known to the unknown. So that's why John Locke, although he's empiricist, he doesn't deny that there is a God, and there is a mind, and there are two types of substance, mind and matter. But he said that we infer from our sense, from the information provided by senses, because we see that these are all things, fleeting things which we see through our senses, and we hypothesize that there must be a substance behind our thoughts, more permanent self behind our thought, or more permanent material substance behind collection of secondary and primary qualities which we perceive through our senses. So basic distinction between, so John Locke, although he was an empiricist, the very important figure, John Locke, will one day study not only his empiricism but also his political philosophy, and is more important than anything. So John Locke denies existence of innate ideas. He especially denies the power of mind or reason for that purpose, to provide us with information or content. And he said reason does inference and it organizes, but it cannot provide us. But although he is empiricist in this specific sense, that he denies the innate ideas, he is not empiricist, thoroughgoing empiricist, in the sense that he doesn't deny substance, even though through our senses we can't perceive something substantial behind, collection of qualities we see, like table or chair. What we see is different dimensions, different colors, different qualitative and quantitative qualities, but we don't see any permanent thing. Similarly, in our own inner observation of our own self, we experience different memories, different thoughts, etc., but we never come across anything more substantial. So in that sense, he is not a thoroughgoing empiricist, and his followers like Berkeley and Hume then criticize him based on that. And basically, Berkeley and Hume, between them, they actually denied. So Berkeley denied that there is a material substance, and Hume denied that there is a self or a mental substance. So that was John Locke. And John Locke, Leibniz, who was a German, and Locke, who was a Englishman, they had lively debates about innate ideas, whether innate. So for John Locke, when we are born, our mind is a clean slate, and we get ideas. There are no inborn ideas or innate ideas, and mind doesn't have any power to see. We get ideas through impressions on our mind, which come through sense. So that's why sense experience is primary in that sense. But obviously, sense experience itself can't give us the whole knowledge. It requires the power of mind to organize and all that, and to infer and all that. So that these are two groups of empiricists and rationalists, and so empiricism, so Locke, and then after Locke, Berkeley came. And after Berkeley, you have Hume. And among rationalists, you have I mentioned Spinoza, but he is not that important in this aspect, because although he is a follower of Descartes, he, at least in his metaphysics, he went fairly pre-modern line, although his political philosophy is more modern. But the person who is important is Leibniz in there. And then Leibniz had a follower called Christian Wolff in Germany, who actually built a whole metaphysical and theological system based on the ideas of Leibniz. And then Wolffian system was based on that. Wolff had huge impact on German universities, and throughout Germany, Leibniz's rationalism became the official philosophy. And one of the followers or disciple of Wolff was Baumgarten, who wrote textbooks based on Wolff's philosophy, which were taught in universities, and Kant used some of those texts in his lecture. So Kant was basically groomed and educated in the Leibnizian system. But at some point in his development, he read Locke and he read Berkeley and read Hume, and especially Hume had a great influence on him. And Kant said that Hume had awoken him from a dogmatic slumber, and that dogmatism being rationalist dogmatism of Leibniz. And he became, his belief in rationalism of Leibniz was shattered, or partially shattered, through his reading of Hume. But he couldn't accept everything which Hume entailed, that is, denial of any substance, denial of the existence of any substance or self, etc., or rational necessity. So he tried to synthesize by combining insights from both rationalism and empiricism, and that synthesis constituted the Kantian revolution, about which we have been talking about And in the next video, I'll specifically just give you an outline of Kant's synthesis, and that will sum up our outline of this Kantian revolution, which will then enable us to go back to Iqbal's text. Okay, thank you.